And that financialization, which is sort of the next piece of this, is the change in the American economy from our post-war system, which was based on production of real goods and services, to a system of maximizing shareholder return. Shareholder return is profits to those who own capital. What this meant was ceasing investment in the United States, although American corporations continue to be very, very profitable. The stock market, has come up remarkably again. The bonuses are back at, actually they're at record height on Wall Street now, higher than they were before the crisis. Financialization is a package. It involves corporations. Let me start this way. In the post-war period, in economics class, you learned that households saved money, they put it in banks, the banks lent the money to businesses, the businesses built plant and equipment, created jobs, invested, paid back the bank, and there was your money. This is familiar to us, and many people think this is what banks still do. No, the corporate sector does not borrow money. It contributes money back. The amount of stock, it doesn't sell stock. On net, it buys its own stock back. It does not raise money this way. It raises money short term in what's called the commercial paper market. That is one big company that has more money than it needs, there are a lot of them, and a big company that wants to borrow, make the deal outside of the bank. Very little of this goes to real investment in anything that's going to create jobs. The other part of financialization has to do with the stagnation of working class incomes. That, as you know, for the last 30, now I think I have to say 40 years, the real income means your income adjusted for the taxes and the rate of inflation. My income went up, but I'm buying less. When I was a kid, you got on the subway for a nickel, a quart of milk was 20 cents. Some of you, all right. It ain't like that anymore. So money income went up, but real income has stagnated or gone down for the average American. This has meant that the only way to keep up our living standard has been to go deeper in debt. Credit card debt, and for a long time, home equity. People who had equity in their home would, as they say, use it as an ATM machine, borrow money against the value of their house. And as housing values were going up, they could do that. Of course, when housing values collapsed, they were screwed, and since the banks planned a little ahead and changed the bankruptcy laws so people can't declare bankrupt, and you've got a whole generation of students who took out student loans, can't find jobs, and are paying out, they can't declare bankruptcy either, because we have returned to a system of debtor prisons. I mean, this is the extent of this. So financialization has created growth based on the creation of debt and leverage. Debt, we understand, you borrow money, you're in debt. Leverage means you borrow more and more and more compared to your actual capital. So the banks don't get their money from depositors. That's true, people deposit money in banks and they get half of 1% interest or something. But that's not where banks get most of their money. Banks now get most of their money from, for instance, money market, because money market still pays higher. People with real amounts of money put it in money market funds. The money market pays that interest because they lend it to the bank. The banks then lend it to hedge funds and other speculators who then borrow huge amounts based on it. Then they promise the securities they have bought. So let's say they bought some collateralized debt obligations. These are terms nobody ever heard of a few years ago, and now we may not understand what they mean, but we've heard them, right? The collateralized debt obligations can take an example of Macy's credit card debt. I have a Macy's credit card. I pay it every month, right? Macy's knows it's gonna collect a certain amount on its credit card. It can go to a bank and borrow money, pledging next month's credit card receipts, because they have to order the spring stuff now, okay? So it's a securitizing, it's taking this income that's gonna come in the future and get money now and then pay it back later. New York City, in the 70s, did this like crazy. The city had no money, so they promised the banks next year's real estate taxes if they'd lend them money now. So we were borrowing against the future. And then when those taxes turned down, you're in a bit of trouble, right? So the whole system, the whole economic system now is based on financialization, the creation of debt and leverage, this huge amount of borrowing on a small base of assets. And most recently, the crisis that was called the Great Recession, which supposedly was from 2007 to 2009, that was from, again, supposedly, those subprime mortgages, right? Because what the banks did was they bundled all the mortgages, sold it to people, and then when the value of those mortgages went down, everybody in the whole game got screwed. The banks needed money, everybody needed money. And so you, the taxpayer, and the Federal Reserve came in and helped them all out to bring them back to where they are. But this is the point. The change in the way our economy worked from a post-war system where we produced goods and services, where you had a traditional working class that would save for college and save to put a down payment on a house lot. In the period from roughly Ronald Reagan, 1980, he had nothing to do with any of this, of course, but the magic of the marketplace deregulated the banks, allowed them to do all this stuff, deregulated everything. And in doing it, created this monster dependent on asset bubbles, on the value of stock going up. Clinton got all this credit because 97, 98, 99, 2000, the market went up, the economy was growing great guns. And then it collapsed because a lot of those companies weren't worth what they said they were, these internet startups and all that. We could talk about that if everyone wants. But the point was, it was an asset bubble. The prosperity was based on people thinking they were richer because the paper value of the stock they owned, and this was true of working class people and their pension funds. You know, those days the pension funds were doing better. It looked like retirement was okay. You could spend a little bit more. People had money in other things. Some people actually owned stock on their own, whatever. When that collapsed, then the real estate bubble. We've now had 3 bubbles in a row, each one worse than the last, and each one ending with a jobless recovery. A jobless recovery. So in 2010, no net jobs had been created since 2000. Jobs had been created, but jobs had been lost. No increase in income. Barry was talking about people have jobs. He knows people who have a lot of jobs, 2, 3 jobs. Because that's the reality. To survive, people have got to put things together. And because the traditional job that was a career that was protected that had union. So it is in this context of a change in the way capitalism has been globalized, financialized, and of course the politics that's gone with that and the money politics that's gone with that, that puts us in this situation. So it is easy to talk about the kind of jobs we need. I suspect everybody at this table can do it. Anybody have any trouble thinking about how to create jobs? Daycare, neighborhood health clinics, rebuild all the schools where the kids are in the gymnasium in 5 groups, split up because there are no classrooms, or maybe fix the roof because it leaks, or take the asbestos or whatever, PCBs out in Staten Island. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can think of that would make our society, our lives, working people's lives better and give the people the jobs we need. So it is not a question, in my view, of simply coming up with these proposals. I think these proposals are good, but the answer is always, but there's no money. And so we have to move to why there's no money.